Hi there, it's Brian Goulet of the Goulet Pen Company and InkNouveau.com. This is going to be a two-part Fountain Pen 101 video on sampling inks. You can get ink samples. Goulet Pen Company sells them. There's other companies that sell them as well. You can trade them with other people. I know Fountain Pen Network has an ink sample trading program. But there's lots of different ways to get ink samples. You may have an ink sample party with some of your friends and bring bottles that you have and try each other's out. There's lots of good ways, and sampling inks is a great way to get a feel for different types of inks without having to buy whole bottles of them. But there's some tricks that I want to show you if you happen to like the sampling lifestyle, if you will, that can help move things along a little bit faster for you. So in this video, I'm going to show you basically ways that you can kind of catalog and store your different writings or samplings, if you will. Some ways that you can test the inks to get an idea of the color without having to do a full ink up and cleaning of your fountain pen. And also how you may want to store them if you find that your ink sample collection gets to be a little bit out of control, as mine definitely is. So hopefully these things will all be able to help you out. If you know that you're going to be testing a lot of inks, and that's something that kind of excites you about fountain pens, is not unusual at all. It's very much is a lot of the reason why I love fountain pens is all the different ink colors and properties. But you may want to try keeping an ink journal. There's no specific format to an ink journal. It's very highly individualistic, and you may like one format over another, but the idea is that you choose a notebook with paper that you like, and you basically just keep a record of the pen and the ink as you use it, and then you can always go back and reference it for your own sake. If you get a close color to it in the future, you can reference it. You may want to use a small notebook and keep one ink per page. That's an option. Or get a larger notebook and you can keep several inks on a page to compare to each other at a glance. It's really kind of up to you. You could even use a high grade laser paper and print your own format if you want. But anyway, the way that I kind of end up doing it, now I'm a blogger, so I end up storing most of my stuff in digital format after I've color adjusted and everything. But the way that I tend to kind of standardize just for my own kind of quirky and unique purposes is I use kind of an ink review format that I have kind of developed and honed over the last couple of years. And I've got a full explanation of how I do this in another video. But the idea is that I'm keeping a log of the pen, the ink, and the paper, and doing a variety of tests to get an idea of dry time and the water resistance and stuff, so that I can always go back and reference it later. I also have a Swab book. This is my kind of infamous yet nondescript Swab book. It's basically just a 2-inch 3-ring binder that I have filled with baseball card holders, and the swabs that you see on gouletpens.com are all ones that I have cut up myself from a high-grade Clairefontaine cardstock. I like the cardstock because it's thicker and it holds up to handling a little bit better than just a regular sheet of paper. I cut them down to it's kind of an arbitrary but a standardized size that I've done, and it just so happened to fit in the baseball card holder. So I have every swab that I've ever done. Now the way that I've done it is with a glass pen and a Q-tip swab. Why a glass pen? Well, that's kind of how I started doing it, and once I got 100 or 200 inks in, I was kind of stuck. So I just still use the very same exact glass pen that I've used ever since the very beginning. But doing a swab and keeping a record of it that way may be something that you would want to consider for your own storage. First thing I usually like to do when testing out a new ink for the first time, in this case I have Noodler's Habanero, which is one I've used before, but I happen to have a sample of it laying around, so I just went ahead and grabbed it. I like to use a Q-tip. Q-tip allows you to swab the ink, get a really quick glance of the general color, and it's definitely not like the most accurate representation of what you're going to see in your fountain pen, but by golly is it easy and is it fast. So I usually just kind of take the Q-tip, make sure to get it in there, let it saturate pretty well. You want to really get a lot on there, because if you're not getting it fully saturated, then you're not getting the most accurate representation of the color. Just kind of rub off the excess there, and then swab to your heart's content. And you can get a pretty good idea. Oh, habanero is orange. That's pretty cool. And that's that's pretty much the extent of my swabbing. Now, me personally, I end up swabbing and keeping, keeping them kind of on file, if you will. But you can do it on paper. You can do it just for your own first glance to get an idea of what it looks like. If you want to get a more accurate idea of what it's going to look like compared to a fountain pen, a glass pen might be an option for you. A glass pen has these small flutes that are twisting down the tip of the pen, and you just kind of soak it in there. You can see the flutes kind of fill up with ink, and then you can write several lines at least and get an idea of what you're seeing. Now, the glass pen is going to write a little bit darker than your fountain pen. Depending on the type of glass pen you have, it can give you varying line thickness, but it can at least give you an idea of what it might look like written in a pen. Another option that there may be to test out things, it's a little bit cheaper than the glass pen, is a dip pen set. This particular one is a Browse set. It's around $12. And it's got 6 different nibs, some of which are not going to be very useful because this dip set is really intended for thicker calligraphy ink. With fountain pen ink, some inks are going to work better than others, and some nibs are going to work better than others with fountain pen inks. But the general idea is that you have a nib that you dip into your ink and you write with it to get a sample. Now, because calligraphy ink is thicker, it sticks to the nib a little bit better than fountain pen ink does. But fountain pen ink should at least give you some idea. The dip set should at least give you some idea as to how it looks. But as you can see, you're not going to get too incredibly far. Let's see. No, that's about it. Okay, so I got most of Noodler out. But the other nibs that are on here, the Bandzug, these have something really cool that's called a reservoir. Now what the reservoir is this little extension fold over thing that's on top of the nib, and that holds extra ink on the nib. So I'll swap that out and show you an idea of what that looks like. The Bandzug nibs on this set are kind of like italic nibs, so it's going to give you a little bit different writing feel than maybe a regular fountain pen would. But there you go, I've got some ink in my reservoir here, and you'll be able to get a little bit more mileage out of it. Than you would with just a regular dip nib. Now it may take a little bit getting used to, and some inks are probably going to work better than others, but that is an alternative for you. Now if you don't have a glass pen or a dip pen set, all you have is your fountain pen. Another way that you could ease your burden a little bit when you're testing lots of different ink colors is you can just dip the nib into the ink and then write with it that way, sort of using it as a dip pen, but you're using it in the actual pen that you're intending to do. Now, a disclaimer here, it's not going to get you the exact same result dipping the nib as it would actually filling the pen and flushing it all the way through, but it's going to give you a pretty decent idea. So I'm going to kind of submerge the nib, get it in here, and you will be able to see here, I'm going to wipe off some of the ink that I've gotten on the section here. I chose this clear Lamy Vista so that I could demonstrate that even though I only dipped the nib in there, it's capillary action that draws ink through the pen. So when you're dipping the nib into the ink, the capillary action with an empty pen is actually going to draw the ink in reverse to kind of come up through the feed. So it's not as clean as you might want it to be. It's not like the ink only stays at the front of the nib. It's going to kind of feed its way up through a little bit. But it's not going to be as much ink in the feed as if you had filled it, and you don't have a converter or a cartridge or anything to worry about cleaning either. So you're still going to have to flush your pen. You'll be able to get, at least a moderate writing sample. I'm going to dip it again just because when I sit here and talk for too long, it's going to not want to do it as much. But you can get an idea here of using, this is a Lamy Vista, and this is going to give you an idea of how different it can look with something like a glass pen and a fountain pen. But it at least gives you a good idea of what you're working with. And if you're going to be doing the dip fountain pen nib thing, then I think you need to have a bulb syringe kind of as an essential. I have a whole separate video on cleaning with a bulb syringe, but if you're planning to get in kind of a marathon inking session and you're going to be using your fountain pen, having the bulb syringe to flush water through the back of the pen is going to make your cleaning life a whole lot easier and spend more time playing with the ink than cleaning out your pen. If you're anything like me and you're a serial ink sampler, it probably won't be long until you go from something like this to something like this. This is not an uncommon occurrence around here. But then again, I have probably access to more samples than anyone in the world. But anyway, one thing that can definitely help is getting a tray or an organizer of some kind to help keep your sanity. The only downfall with trays like these is that the inks only on the outside are really visible. The ones on the inside are not quite as easy to find, so you end up hunting a little bit. So one cool kind of thing that I've seen people do is take and use a sticker or a piece of paper or something like that and actually dab it with the ink. And then you can take a piece of tape or something like that and you can actually kind of take and stick it to the top of the vial. That way, when you have it sitting in the holder, you can see at a glance what kind of color you're dealing with. That's one of the coolest things I've seen. You could also write the name on top. I've seen people do that. Just kind of neat things to make storing your samples a little more referenceable. Now at gouletpens.com we do kind of take this ink sample storage tray thing and we try, granted we're doing all these by hand and we're not always dead on, but we try to put the labels in a place so that it's easily readable in between the two pieces of plastic here. But you know, we don't always get that quite dead on, but that is something we try to do. But anyway, this is one of the coolest tricks that I've seen people do. There's lots of cool ink sample storage solutions that I've seen out there. You know, putting the color on the top is one of the best ideas that I've seen, and I haven't taken the time to do it for everything I have, but you know, at least now I have one. So that's kind of a cool trick and something that might help keep your ink organization life in order a little bit. I'm sure you're able to pick up a couple of neat little tricks from this video. If you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email at brian@gouletpens.com. Next video, part 2 of this series, I'm going to be going through some more of the ink sample vials and show you how to fill a pen from them, and if you have a pen that can't fill from it, how to get around that. So look out for that one. But in the meantime, thanks for watching and write on.